this is, I mean, I guess we're recording now, so I'll start talking. Like, the big draw for me was that some of our most successful videos on our channel were breaking down Alan Holdsworth. And as soon as I started reading your book, I'm like, oh shit, I did it wrong and I led everybody astray. You know? It's like on Facebook, like I had this like how to sound like Alan Holdsworth video where I was just taking diminished scale patterns and like
I saw that video.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, so I'm assuming you're like, you know.
Yeah. Oh no, man, it's like, I mean, I see people break stuff down and I'm like, it's just that you can't know, right? You can't see what you don't know. So if you don't know these other scales, then there's no way for you to know, you know?
Yes.
And like those minor third half step shapes that you were showing in the diminished scale, those exist in a bunch of these scales.
Right.
So that's not, you know, a lot of people too, like think that he's just kind of randomly moving stuff, like moving those shapes around. I thought that at the beginning, you know, but it's not.
Like melodic cells that are just like, you know, sort of random and shapy.
Yeah, but the more you dig into it and you start relating it to the harmony, you see that the scales he's choosing are relating to the chords that he's playing over. So it's not just some random thing, you know.
Yeah.
And these scales, because these scales share, you know, because these scales are like 9-note scales, a lot of the scales share similar subset scales. You know what I mean? So he'll weave in and out of that. You know, like I'll show you today, like the jazz major add flat 3, flat 6 scale, and all the different scales that come, all the different subset scales that come from that scale. It's a lot. You know?
Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot. This is like it's beyond overwhelming to start this process. But yeah, let's do it. I mean, I think everybody will benefit, and thankfully, me and Nick are pretty dumb, so I feel like we like just having the material course through us will bring it down to the people.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
We are a slowing agent. Where I went wrong was that the way I see harmony is just a typical jazz thing. So I see, I have my definition of a scale that I have taught to people for many years, which, you know, I still stand by in the context of normal harmony, is that you can't have more than 2 half steps in a row. Mm-hmm. And you just fill up the octave with as many interval sets as you can following that rule. And if you just do that, you know, all you get is just major, harmonic minor, harmonic major, melodic minor, augmented, whole tone, diminished, and that's the whole story. And everything else is some sort of, you know, it gives you basically every triad plus, you know, every 4-part harmony combination, but you never have a situation where you have, let's say, a 6 flat 7 7, a root flat 9 9. Right. Yeah, you did the whole phone book from hell thing, right? And did every single option of everything that exists. And how many scales are we working with?
It's like 217 unique scales that Alan would be drawing from, right? But what I did in the book with I kind of narrowed it down to 22 in the book.
Which is so much. I mean, like, I find 7 unmanageable. Like, you know, most people will never make it past major. That's like, if you're just being real. And then like the people, you know, a lot of the professionals you see have melodic minor, major, some very little diminished, and very little harmonic minor, no harmonic major, no augmented, some that's your typical jazz guy. You're just trying to get, so 22 is just above and beyond. And I don't even, like, from where I'm at, like, how do you even approach learning something new? I forgot. Harmonically, how do you even do it? Like, what did you do? How'd you start putting it on the fretboard?
So, I mean, what I did, the first thing you do, I mean, everybody knows most jazz guys know the major bebop scale, right? So
to an extent, yeah.
So the difference is, right, instead of like most jazz guys think of that as just a passing tone. So, that kind of thing. Right. So, actually played a wrong note, but anyway, but Alan doesn't think about it that way, right? So to him, that note has the same weight as any other note. So you can get, Barry Harris does this with this scale, but with the dominant bebop scale, people don't play voicings with like an F sharp and an F in it coming out of that. If you're thinking of like G dominant, most jazz guys
G dominant being like a G mixolydian when you add the 7.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you're not going to see most jazz guys playing that over like a G major 7. Right. It's usually over a dominant. Right.
So for Alan, G major 7 would be a part of that tonal structure.
Be a part of that tonal structure. Yeah. So then if you take if you do that with the jazz major add flat, or the jazz major add flat 6 scale, right? You get diminished. You get minor 7, D minor 7 flat 5. You get like E sus flat 9.
So to slow you down, you're thinking about C major 7 with an add flat 3 and an add flat 6. So
right now I'm just thinking just the flat 6, right? So
just the flat 6. Right. Yeah. So if now the tonal center is D is in the bass. So instead of that G, you have a G flat, so you can have minor 7 flat 5. Yeah. You can have a diminished.
Diminished. You get like a sus flat 9 chord. You get like F minor major 7. Right.
F minor major. And then if me and Nick were talking about it this morning, like if A flat is the root, then you would have like a major 7 sharp 5, a fully diminished there.
Get major 7 sharp 5 with a sharp 9.
Yeah, because that's a C major 7 with A flat in the bass. It's like the 1 chord. Yeah. So. Okay, but like in Alan's universe, so I guess how would you? Well, maybe what I'm always trying to do is bring it back into the world of jazz and apply it to like jazz chord changes rather than kind of take the harmonic ride of where this thing leads, which is what he did, because other than None Too Soon, there's like no standards or that was kind of like a proof. It's like I can do this shit on this too, but I guess the music that he was interested in was just like this was the palette of color.
Right. Yeah. And like a lot of these scales, like you'll see him move. Like I think he used a lot of these scales as compositional tools, like the 9-note scales and everything, because like you'll see a lot of movements. Like you'll see him. What seems like he's just moving a shape around. Right, like that kind of thing. So it's like F major 7 sharp 11 to A flat major 7 sharp 11. And if I was using like if you do mode 3, you actually get like major 7 sharp 11 chords moving in major thirds.
Yeah.
Right, and so all these movements and everything, I think he used these scales to kind of create some of the chord progressions and stuff,
I see. So just to break down mode 3, you mean like the Messiaen mode 3,
right?
And well, I guess we'll get into that, what those things mean down the line. But let's jump in. Let's just handhold us on a trip through some of this very unknown territory,
That's the first thing. I mean, that's the first thing I did was I wanted to know with that scale, right? Like I was familiar with it with like the 6 diminished, having like the Barry Harris method or whatever, and using that as a passing tone, being able to get like all this 5/1 type stuff.
Yeah, like the minute.
And then my lines were, you want to make sure that you got the weak beat, strong beat thing going on where your chord tones are on downbeats and your non-chord tones are on upbeats and all that stuff. Alan doesn't think like that either, right? So To him, it doesn't matter if that note lands on a downbeat,
Right.
right? And he's not using. So what I started doing was looking for shapes that I see him use within that scale. So
Visually,
you get this,
like on the fretboard.
yeah, visually. Mm-hmm. So like you get this minor third, what I call minor third half step shape, right? So that's the one that you were showing, right?
Yeah.
So you get that shape. And then like other movements that Alan does, another common movement that he does. Like that kind of thing.
And that, where does that go? Real slow. Ah. I still did not get to do that slow. Yeah. Ooh. This is what I was afraid of. We're going in, Nick.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
Yeah, I know. This is like the second thing. I was just like, wait a second, what the mechanics of that look odd. Okay. Let's not get swallowed up in this.
All right, so I started looking for more shapes like that too, right? So like this half step, whole step shape. Right? So that's shapes stay the same.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So okay.
I started looking for that stuff like all over the place, and then just started trying to play. Right?
I see.
So I'm just seeing that scale. I know some shapes that Alan used. I know the scale. I can see the scale the way Alan does. Like I don't necessarily think the way Alan does all the time. I think different things at different times, but I have different ways, my own way of breaking things down. But Alan talks about, being able to see scales from the lowest to the highest note, right? So I spend a lot of time trying to do that, to where I can just see all the notes that are available, and then I can just, juggle the notes around like he talks about.
Now this is interesting. I'm gonna tap out actually of like the trying to figure out in real time, and this is gonna be a part of our montage. So mental note, Nick. We're gonna have to go through it, but can you show us like a little bit of how you would maneuver it? I guess. Okay, here, question number one. When you say from the lowest note to the highest note, do you mean without duplicating notes, or like do you have
so
like
if I just went like
shape?
So like 4 note per string, right? And I won't, like, I tried not to like memorize that shape. That wasn't something I had memorized. I'm just seeing the notes, and every time I do it, it might be different.
Okay, so it's kind of like the freedom that you eventually would have with any other scale.
With any other scale.
It's kind of like a template you're throwing, like a visual template, and you can kind of dance through it freely. That would be like the long-term goal. But what you're saying is that the way you got into it, though, was sort of, because you were familiar from transcribing solos, you're familiar with like the finger shapes,
right?
So trying to locate the physical movements and repeating them inside the tonality,
right, inside the scale. So I can do like, once we add the E flat, like it opens up a whole nother thing. But before we move to that, as far as harmonically, this scale with just adding the one note has C harmonic major and A harmonic minor in it. Right. So all the chords that exist in those scales are going to be available for you to use this scale to solo over. You can come up with chord progressions that weave in and out of that. Those, so like the major scale, C harmonic major and A harmonic minor, come up with a chord progression that kind of utilizes chords from each one of those scales, and then you can just use this scale to solo over it.
So like a minor 2-5-1 in A minor, as well as a major 2-5-1 in C, and a 4-5-1 in C, and anything in C, but also anything in A harmonic minor, anything in C harmonic major. So like a 2-4 minor major 7-1 would work. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, everything's in there. Okay.
Yeah, so all that stuff is in there, and then you can just kind of see this scale as your palette of notes to pull from.
Okay.
So that's a big way that how Alan thought about this stuff, right? It's almost like pitch set theory, right? Because these scales.
What that is. What's pitch set theory?
Well, that's like taking a group of notes. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. But like that's essentially what Alan did. He just called them scales, right? So pitch set theory is like taking a group of notes and then making that group of notes any number of notes that you want, 11, 5, 7, whatever. It can be, you can just pick random notes, and then that can be your, that would be the notes that you draw from to compose or to solo or whatever, right?
Okay, so you just kind of eliminate, and that, yeah, I mean, that's kind of playing.
So that's the same. Yeah, so it's, I mean, Alan's a very modal player, very linear, right? Things are very linear. He's not like a chord tone player like Scott Henderson, right? I was just talking to a student about this the other day, about the difference.
The
difference
like a bebop player, an electric
and he's just very chord tone driven, right? So you can really hear each chord change. He says it. So if you take the band away, you still hear that. But if you take the band away with Alan, you'll still hear changes, but it's like you're hearing key centers move more, you know what I mean? Rather than individual chords move.
So let me ask you this. From analyzing, let's say, I'm assuming you did a bunch of solos from None Too Soon when he was playing on standards.
I haven't done a lot of those, but a little bit. Yeah.
You saw I saw Countdown in there.
Yeah, Countdown's in there.
So with a thing like this, is he not surgical through the changes? It's more like he will lump a bunch of the harmony into one big scale it comes from, kind of beat that. And so in a way, he's playing changes slower.
So yeah, he's kind of like broadening, the palette. So like so with that tune, one of the things I did with that tune was the intro solo. Right. So when I was first, and I put this in the book where I analyzed that solo in a jazz harmony kind of, approach. So that's like a whole chapter in the book, I think, where I break that solo down, just the intro solo. And you can see how some of the jazz language and stuff manifests itself, like digital patterns and stuff like that. But when you play that solo, you can tell Alan's not thinking that at all. Right. So what I did, I was like, well, I put the chord changes. I wanted to see if what he was playing lined up with the chord changes. So I put the chord changes on there, and then I analyzed it. And that's what I did in the jazz harmony approach to that solo in the book. But then later on, when I started figuring out that these are scales and everything, one of the things I figured out when I was doing that was that, I was experimenting at this point already with mode 3 a lot. And I had discovered that, the Coltrane changes exist in that scale. That's a major third scale. And Coltrane's, actually the melody to Giant Steps basically comes out of mode 3, if I remember correctly. And so those changes are in there, right? So you could take like the Countdown or whatever, and take Countdown and assign 3 different mode 3s, or however, I can't remember how many times it changes keys or whatever. So
there's basically you have one scale and 3 keys, and each one represents a full line of music.
Right, a full 4 bars.
Down in half steps, which works out to be, it's like going,
Right. So, Alan didn't do that, but what he did was he used mode 4 and another one of the 8-note scales, I believe, like the jazz minor add flat 5. So if you take melodic minor and you add the flat 5 to it, you use that scale. I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. He used that scale in that solo. He used mode 4 and he uses mode 3. But you can tell that, like, you know, these scales that he's choosing are chosen very carefully, because otherwise they wouldn't line up. If I just move my fingers randomly on the neck, what are the chances of the notes lining up on countdown as well as they do when Alan is playing over that? You know?
But I guess my big thing is like also almost like a question, because like when you take, like, let's say something like mode 3, so if I'm conceptualizing it correctly, it would be like 1, 2, sharp 2, 3, right? And then it would be like I mean, I think of it 5 flat 6.
Yeah, I mean, I think of it 1, 2, flat 3, 3, right?
1, 2, flat 3, 3, right?
Right.
So it's like it's everything except for flat 2, 4, and 6. That's like
right.
So I guess why eliminate those?
I mean, these scales, man, are, you know, they're just scales that show up when you log all the permutations of scales, right? Now, Alan, you know, like the Messiaen scales obviously are scales that Messiaen used to, and they're associated with him, right? But they're in this Lenimsky book too.
Right.
Those same scales. So these like old school classical cats had like spent time permutating the chromatic scale, you know?
Right.
Anybody that's like a classical theorist or a classical composer or something like that, that's back in the day. So they discovered these scales, you know? It's just a scale that exists, you know? So why not?
Well, I guess my question, like in the context, like countdown, is there 0 once you're in, I guess, and you're playing over, let's say, fast moving chords, how do you keep from hitting like the horrendous notes on the nose?
Well, on that, yeah, well, I mean, you know, with this stuff, man, like, typically the lines are moving so fast, it's, you know, unless you land on it and hold a horrendous note, it's just going to sound like
a part of the big
flurry of notes, you know?
And it's exactly the feeling that we all like about Alan's music, right? It's like those things that somehow stretch our brain, and it's like that, you know, because
Alan's whole thing, Alan's whole thing is kind of like a flurry, right? It's like the sheets of sound kind of thing. And Coltrane was a huge influence for him. So I think that, you know, so like the scales that don't complete themselves in one octave that I talk about in the book too, that I don't call him this, but Dennis Sandoli, right, was one of Coltrane's teachers, and Pat Martino and a bunch of other people from Philadelphia. Where are you? You're in Boston, right?
So you know, in Chicago.
Oh, you're in Chicago? Okay. Yeah. So, but you're up north, right? Do you know who Dennis Sandoli is? And
no, I don't.
Okay. So anyway, he's a guitar player, and he was actually one of Coltrane's teachers. He was one of Pat Martino's teachers. He taught like a bunch of people. Anyway, he has like a similar, his way of approaching, he has this thing he calls polytonal scales. Right. And it's basically like just 2 scales in a different octave, you know. So if you were to take like C major and D major and connect them, you know, so you play C major in one octave and D major in the second octave.
I see.
That's very similar to the way Alan approaches it, except for Alan didn't want the root to repeat at the octave. Whereas Dennis Sandoli might play C major into C minor, right? But Alan wouldn't do that. If Alan was doing that, he would play the C major all the way up to B, and then he would just skip the C and play D and start C minor on D, and then continue to play C minor in the second octave.
Interesting. Okay.
So when he does this,
are there a lot of examples of Alan doing the 2 octave scales?
There isn't a lot. Like I couldn't find a lot. Like the most of the ones I found, it seems like he was experimenting with it on the Wardenclyffe Tower album.
Okay.
Is where I found the most examples of that. And then there was like a couple things on in The Drums Were Yellow. I think there's an example I give. And then there's one on Secrets. I think it's the song Secrets, if I remember right. I have those examples in the book and I show that, but you know, I didn't find a lot of that. You know, it seemed like he was experimenting with it back on that Wardenclyffe Tower album mostly, you know.
So what are the things that like, you know, would be, I guess, the initial tool bag to kind of like start getting to work getting those sounds? I mean, what I'm hearing is like major scale at flat 3, flat 6,
right?
Mode 3, and maybe that melodic minor with the melodic minor with a flat 5, you said?
Yep, that's one of them. That's one of the 8-note scales. I really think that people should spend a lot of time experimenting with the flat 3, flat 6 major scale, right? Okay. So the add flat 3, flat 6.
What do we do? What do we do?
Right. So like, so let's just get into that one, right? So I know we got off track. I'm ADD. No. Like, if we like, you got to keep me in check.
This is the track. I mean, like my whole idea is that, you know, we'll get through it together. If people at home buy the book, and also we're gonna do like a packet of relevant information, a few pages from the book for purchase every week. So people at home can just kind of use that, help them stay on track. And also, I know you're giving like you're actually paying a percentage to the family and helping them that way. So do a mitzvah.
Yeah, so it's not all going to me. Yeah. So, so the major add flat 3, add flat 6. So once you've experimented with the flat 3 or the add flat 6 scale, I guess the next step is to add that flat 3 in there. And then this opens up like, if you're looking at it the way Alan's looking at it, which is from the lowest to the highest note, and you know his fingerings, again, that like that minor third half step thing, well, now that opens up all these other possibilities. Right, so then you get like these movements that you'll see him do. Like that kind of thing. Where he's going across the neck, you know?
That looks hard. So,
like that kind of thing, you know?
Okay. So that first one, oh my God, I don't want to work. That's my problem. It's like, I want to listen to you. I don't want to learn anything. Okay, so that first pattern that was kind of like a sequence that sort of stays stationary with some...
Like these are in the book. Like I put these movements in there, right? So they're all in there. So like, that's what I did. I started looking for that stuff, right? And I'm like, okay, hang on a minute, man. Like all this stuff that
you've like, transcribed down and you know a bunch of these fingerings.
Yeah, I've transcribed. I know a bunch of the fingerings and everything. Like the thing is, you know.
Do you think that's important pre-knowledge? Like, is that the best route in?
Not necessarily. I mean, it just depends. I mean, if you want to, you know, get all the hate I've gotten for doing anything Holdsworth related, then, you know, posting it on social media, being called a clone every 5 minutes and like do your own thing. And like, if you want to get bombarded with all the hate, then yeah, go ahead and do that. But, you know what I mean? But like,
yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because it's the people that are like searching how to sound like Alan Holdsworth. Like, fuck you! It sounds like Alan Holdsworth. Yeah. It's not like the internet really leads there.
Yeah. So they find it and then they're pissed at you because you're doing it and they're
Well,
not.
yeah, I'm pissed at you too because it just looks like a lot of work, and I have other things to do, But but let's do it. So let's start with just like I'm sorry. This is probably not gonna work too well for your ADD because I'm really slow. But like just some fingering, some idea of the actual physical patterns that are going on.
All right. Well, one of the things that he does, like the simplest stuff, is like looking for these shapes as close together as possible. And if you have to skip strings, you skip strings. So
the same identical shapes, like when you're talking
the
about
same
like
identical
3 notes. So on the G, on the E, and on the E string. And this
what
is
I would do. I would try to find that shape everywhere, right? So you've got it there on those string sets.
Okay.
You've got it here in half steps.
Okay.
Right.
How are you moving from one? You did something cool moving from one to the other. Oh, just. That
Yeah.
kind of thing. Okay.
And then you've got, you've got it here.
God, I gotta take your word for it.
Yeah.
Oh my God! So it's not symmetric at all. So you have it here, there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Nick! Do you feel like you're having a stroke too?
And then you've got it.
Fuck. Yeah, I'm not seeing it at all. I'm kind of repeating what you're doing. So I'm actually gonna have to.
I mean, it takes like investigation.
Yeah. So I'm adding. Okay, but maybe like a better. If I'm looking for that specific thing, it's only gonna happen because of the half steps I added. So I've added. Like to this
flat and E flat,
yeah.
C major. Yep. So you have to know,
A flat. Yeah. Okay. I'm seeing it. So if I just do it on one string, it exists in one. Just take it in one scale. 2.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Add an E flat. 3. No.
There you go.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So starting from the flat 6 in C major. Okay. From the flat 6.
Got it from the first fret too. First fret.
Right. Okay. From the 4, I have the shape. From the flat 6. From the 7. From the 1. Not here, but here. Oh, that's it. So 1, 2, 3, 4 places.
Yeah. Is that it?
I hope so.
Something like that.
All right. So if I'm just working, if I'm thinking about it my way, so I know what do we say? Flat 6, 4, flat 6, 7, and 1. So if I'm just thinking 7, 1, 4, flat 6, 7, 1, 4, flat 6. I think I have something that works for me. Danny, our saxophone player, said something great about Alan's lines. He said, when you play him fast, the person listening feels like he's having a stroke. And when you play him slow, the person thinks you have a stroke.
Yeah, makes sense.
So it's the power of stroke, just casting it. Stroke lines. So you mean to tell me that now this shit works over 2-5-1?
Well, yeah, you can make it work. Yeah.
Nick, a 1, 2. So like, if I'm, but seriously, like, if this is like, and this is, so I'm now supposed to think. Holy shit! I think I've understood something.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so that's But that's nothing. That's like just one shape in four
Right.
places in the scale. What's another shape?
Yep. Another shape is half step, whole step.
All right.
So then you get like this. Right here, Alan.
So you have that like false fingering.
false fingering.
Where'd you take it?
That was it.
Ah, from one to the other.
Yeah.
All right, all right, all right. So, okay. So to slow it down, I need that mantra. Ba-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da. Okay, so the other shape. I'm sorry. We ate some weed before thinking that this is a good idea to go into the mystery, and it's actually making the mystery so much more mysterious. So, okay. We added a flat, so where do we have that shape? We have it from the
Yep.
fifth,
Yep.
and we have it from the seventh,
Yep.
and we have it from the flat three.
Right. Yep.
Do we have it anywhere else? Yes, we have it from the three.
Yep.
So we got four of those and four of those. And they have to be next to each other, right?
Yeah.
Do they? So it's like they come in pairs.
So you can get that kind of thing.
Okay.
Right.
And that's with the false finger.
Right.
Now, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. So that's another one of his movements that he does. Right in the book,
I
talk
love
about.
this.
When I talk about the movements in the book, right? There's a whole chapter on some of the most common movements that he uses, right?
Dude, how are you? It's so overwhelming. I mean, it's like that's the thing. I'm very glad.
Yeah, this
we're doing
one
this.
scale. I mean, this one scale. That's why I was saying, like, this one scale alone, you can stay in this scale and like. I mean, you can find Holdsworth related ideas like forever. It's like endless.
Dude.
You know.
Amazing. Okay, so yeah, what I know it's in the book. People will buy the book, and we're gonna find it in the book and add the relevant pages, and people can purchase those, not for the price of the full book. That's there. But walk us through some of that.
So that thing, is just this movement where it's like so if you were to do that on one string,
almost like a
like
diminished scale kind of pattern.
But he does it going across. This is where all the hammer-ons come in too, right? So like he might pick this note, might pick all three of those actually. And then hammer.
That's a hammer?
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be difficult.
Yep.
That? How does so I have to back up. On a technical note, I think people really focus on his left hand chops.
Right.
Don't talk about the right hand at all, but I noticed you said maybe he'd pick all those. So how does the right hand work here?
Yeah. So, I mean, he does do pull-offs, but he doesn't do a lot of pull-offs, right? So he might pick those three notes. He might do pull-offs there. It's going to depend on, I'd have to hear a particular lick or whatever, but like, me personally, I just pull those off. Like I'll pick the first note, hammer, pick, pull, hammer, pick, hammer, pick. So this is just, triads that I'm playing.
Wait a second. But that's not how we play guitar.
That's how Alan plays guitar. That's how Alan plays guitar.
But that's a big problem for us.
Yeah.
Like we don't know how to do that. That's gonna take time. All right, so you're saying that when you cross strings, you're not picking.
Right. Well, Alan doesn't pick.
Yeah, but do you?
Like the hammer-ons from nowhere. Sometimes I do, yeah, but
I do like this dragging, like sweep picking motion when I approach a new string. I don't do that. So that means, is there like a? I'm assuming that will change how you're orchestrating it with your left hand to where you kind of get there with the finger you want to get there with.
Yeah.
All right, so like that specific example, what was your fingering? So it was like, then hammer on with the ring?
Yeah, and then second finger, first finger.
Yeah, so you're not doing this because you're gonna run out of guitar here, so.
Right, well, because I'm about to hammer this note in a minute. Right.
Yeah, okay. So that's the
Yeah.
How does that movement work?
So another movement Alan does a lot is the fourth, just moving like this kind of.
I'm guessing that's picked.
Yeah, that's picked.
All of it's picked? So, that note was hammered down.
Hammer.
So you're going like down, up, down?
He might actually go hammer, hammer on this note and then just pick those two.
That's so counterintuitive. Okay. So pick those.
But this is what gets him that kind of saxophone-ish sound, though.
The hammer-ons.
If you ever watch, like, there's particular videos where they're like, you see a camera from behind him, right? And you see his hand going across the neck like that. And it's almost like he's pressing the keys of a saxophone. He's thinking of it like he's pressing the keys of a saxophone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a whole
the
other
impression I get.
A whole other like note production mechanism. Okay,
Yeah.
so but I can see a path. So would you say for crossing strings there's a predominant finger to get that kind of, because I'm seeing you do a lot of ring on new strings.
Yeah.
Maybe not exclusively. No. Like, does it happen with the index finger very often, like a hammer-on from nowhere?
No, like I think he picks those notes most of the time.
And how about the pinky? Does the pinky?
Yeah, there's hammers. Oh yeah, the pinky does. So like if I go like this
string.
line, right there.
Is that what you're doing?
Right, so I'm using my second finger here.
Ah.
Yeah. So there's a line in hard hat area that, like, he's modulating through more scales and stuff with that line, but I took the idea of that line and I just made it fit in this scale.
Okay.
Right? I want to see if I could make it fit in that scale. Right, that kind of thing. And so it's harder with a clean sound. If I had like my Holdsworth,
Sure.
clone tone on, then
Yeah.
but yeah, those notes pop out obviously a lot easier. You know what I mean? But,
Yeah. Okay, so this thickens the plot quite a bit, because I was thinking we're just gonna come here to pick up some notes and some chords, but we actually have to learn how to play guitar that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, it all depends, man. Like if what you want to do, like if
this series is called How to Holdsworth. We want Holdsworth, baby. We're not here trying to do anything else.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll let you take all the comments then.
Yeah, bring it on. You know, I have a response in advance. If you're considering writing comments, it's fuck you. Do not watch this. If you don't, it's like, it's so crazy. It's like, it's a really, you know what I mean? Because it's like, the big thing, he is like, he likes Holdsworth. It's like, yeah, dude. It's like you spent like 5 years writing like a book about this man's music. You know what I mean? I wonder if like this happens in other styles. I can't imagine in classical music. It's like fucking their orchestra sounds just like Beethoven.
Yeah, well, you know, man. I mean, the analogy I always give is if you take like, you know, Michael Brecker and Branford Marsalis and George Garzone and like all those guys spent their life studying Coltrane.
Right.
You know, and it's like, yet they all sound very individual with a Coltrane influence, right? But there's actually there's an old clip of Michael Brecker, like when he was, you know, I want to say 19 or something, and he was playing in like, oh man, one of the big bands or something up there, and you know, like Woody Herman, it wasn't Woody Herman, but I can't remember who it was. And he sounds like more like Coltrane than he does the Brecker we know today, because he was still developing, right? Still developing his voice and his tone and his sound and his articulation. All that stuff sounded more Coltrane-ish. Later on, you know, he started adding in more, like R&B type phrases and stuff like that. And then his lines became more articulated too. They weren't as like
legato, just
like more tonguing, right? Yeah. So he would seem to do more tonguing than Coltrane. And you know, all those guys spent, you know, Garzone talks about spending so much time trying to figure out what Coltrane was doing, and he ended up developing, you know, what he calls the triadic-chromatic approach, right? Concept, which is his way of getting that Coltrane type harmony, right? That sound. And they all, each one of those guys, you know, if you take Jerry Bergonzi or whoever, they all have like, they came up with an approach that worked for them to get that kind of sound, but they're all chasing train, right? That's the thing.
Yeah. I think also like the thing
there's
that's
so
different about Alan is that the theoretical approach is so radically different than everybody else. So for like, people don't have the ear to separate the material from the way he's navigating it. Right. Because he's sort of like the first guy there.
He was also trying to come from a Coltrane thing. You know, he was trying to get a Coltrane. I mean, if you listen to The Drums Are Yellow, man, so I went through a phase in my, 30s, I guess, like, or late 20s, early 30s, where I was a jazz snob, right? Like, if it wasn't like, you know, upright bass with, you know, swinging drummer and saxophone and piano, or acoustic piano and all that, then I didn't want to hear it, right? So I was listening to like, you know, the Miles Davis and Coltrane from the 60s and 50s and all that kind of stuff, right? And, you know, because early on I was a shredder, right? I was on like Shrapnel Records and all that sort of stuff, and did all that. And
what's his name? Something Psycho from Texas.
That's my brother. Yeah, me and my brother play on that.
You're on that album.
Yeah, I'm on that album, and
I remember that from the Guitar Player magazine.
Oh yeah.
That's funny. That brings, my teacher in Israel when I was growing up had like a room full of Guitar Player magazines. When you'd wait, you'd read them. I remember reading about you guys when I was like 14.
Oh really? Yeah,
man. All the way across the world.
Yeah. So, you know, I was a shredder or whatever. Then I got into like really hardcore into jazz, and I started, you know, I quit guitar and played saxophone and piano and like studied all these other instruments. And I just wanted to be I wanted to go to New York in my, you know, when I was in my late 20s or whatever. And and be like one of those guys, but I ended up getting married and having a family and all that stuff, right? So
It's much better.
that puts an end to those dreams of poverty in New York. So
Yeah.
Anyway, when I came back to Allen, like in early 2000, like when 16 Minute Tane came out, I'm hearing him from a completely different perspective now, because now I understand jazz harmony. I've played it, I've studied it, So I'm listening to like The Drums Were Yellow comes on, and I'm like, man, somebody actually got the Coltrane thing on guitar. That's the closest I've ever heard anybody play Coltrane on guitar. And that's one of the reasons that like that was the first solo I ever transcribed and wrote out, right, of Allen's, and tried to figure out like all the fingerings and all that sort of stuff, because of that, right? The problem was when I started to analyze it, I was analyzing it through the lens of somebody who's a straight ahead.
Which is exactly what I did with all like I would only give names to the things that would fit that kind of vision, and then write off the rest of them to chance.
Right. Yeah. Like, so, but the thing is like, like I could see all the triads. I'm like, oh man, here's an augmented triad, here's a diminished triad, here's a minor triad or whatever, 3 note per string or whatever. And then, but then I'm like, I would see these shapes, like the minor third half step shape and like the half step minor third shape. And I'd see all that stuff. And I'd just be like, if I get rid of this half step, whatever the phrase is, I can make it like whatever scale. So like I started thinking, this just isn't the way that you typically would play a passing tone, right? Like with these, you wouldn't be thinking.
No, you would not.
You know what I mean?
Even if that note works out to be that in the scale, you would tuck it in physically.
Right. Yeah. You're going to be thinking of a scale that has that shape in it. And so it's like when I started messing around with mode 3 a lot is where I found that shape. I found so much stuff that is like probably his favorite scale.
We are going to stay inside bebop scale, add flat 3. And we're gonna keep talking about it, damn it. So okay, all right. To bring us back, so my thing that sent us off a rampage, for like on a rant this time was that I got greedy and I wanted to know about these sort of descending shapes on the guitar, and then we went into the whole rabbit hole of the technique that we don't have. Okay, but let's recap, because I want to figure out something that's manageable for us to learn in a week, which is Nick's fucking lazy. No, I'm kidding. No, we're gonna work hard. So we have the 2 shapes. We have the minor third half step and the half step minor third. We're gonna do that. What other shapes in this scale should we make ourselves see?
Right. So like I would say the half step, whole step shape. And
okay.
And then when you add the E flat, you also get the whole step, half step shape.
Wait a second. Why are you starting that shape?
So like 10th
fret. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
All right. And that happens only in one area of the, because okay.
Right. So you'll get that stuff up here too, in different places. Right. But so like if you play these scales 3 note per string, that's another thing I guess that you should probably experiment with, because you'll start to kind of, because it takes you across the neck, right? So
like I'm supposed to do it like in sequence, 3 note per string.
Yes, that's what I'm doing, right? So I'm just gonna
okay. nightmare. Okay. That's not right, is it?
No.
Oh, okay. So you're not trying to memorize, or you're trying to see it. You're not trying to memorize the shape.
Yeah, I'm trying to see it.
Oh, motherfucker. And they're supposed to move it to other keys too, huh? How's that even gonna work? Nick.
We didn't even get into like the harmony that this scale generates, you know?
Yeah, let's get into that. Okay, so everything underneath with that scale, let's lump to the side everything we get with the diminished sixth scale, right? And then like what other options are now opening up with that E flat?
So yeah, so with this one now you've got C melodic minor, C harmonic minor, and A Hungarian minor, right? Added to, and you got the C augmented scale.
C augment like this.
So you get
that guy?
Yep. So
okay. Now, okay, so C melodic minor, all the chords that come out of it. So now, okay, you got C harmonic minor too?
Yep, C harmonic minor.
Okay. And now you said Hungarian minor. So Hungarian minor, it's like mode 4 of...
I think of it as Hungarian minor. Some people think of it as double harmonic major, I guess. Gypsy scale.
I see. Okay. So it's sort of a so you're thinking it's kind of like a minor scale that has a sharp 4 and a major 7?
Harmonic minor sharp 4 is another way to think of it.
Harmonic minor sharp. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's, yeah, and like my thinking, that's not even a scale because it has those like 2 half steps. But now it is. All right. So so what are the harmonies that come out of Hungarian minor?
So you've got
do you think about Hungarian minor like this? Do you think about it harmonically?
Yeah, so you got let me think. So A minor major 7.
Right. But you also have like A minor 7 flat 5 in there. Or no. You have you have diminished major 7.
The diminished major 7, B7 flat 9, flat 5 sharp 5 is in there.
B7. Say it again. B7 what?
Flat 9, flat 5 sharp 5.
Yeah. Sharp 5. Is that true? Man. Okay.
And
it's like too many things I don't know at once. Okay, and that's all still inside that original.
yeah, you got C major 7 sharp 5, E flat minor 7 flat 5, E major 7, F major
E flat minor 7 flat 5, is that there?
flat. Actually, no, that's not in there. Sorry.
Right, because you wouldn't have. It's not in there.
7, F major 7.
Oh, right, no F sharp. Right. E major 7?
Major 7.
Ah, right, because yeah.
F major 7, G sharp minor 6.
So in this way, like over a 2-5-1 in C, you could play E major 7?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I see that. All right.
So yeah, that's that scale's pretty nuts.
Yeah, well, it's making all these 9-note scales basically make it into like this intersection of all this harmony that was completely unrelated before.
That's a way, I don't know that Alan thought about that kind of stuff that much. I know he did a little bit because I know on one of his charts, the chart for 16-minute no, for on Tokyo Dream, there was a chart floating around that Alan made, and he had the the major bebop scale, and the three scales that we talked about as subsets. He had all of those symbols on the chart. So I know he thought about subsets a little bit. I don't know that he is necessarily as anal as I am, but I want to find everything.
Yeah. Okay, so what would be a good way to cataloging this might be like all the chords starting from every root, like in terms of like the arpeggios that exist there. So like all the kinds of C's you might have, all the kinds of E flats now you might have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh man, excuse me.
Just in terms of seeing like chord on chord. Okay.
But you get like within this scale alone, or these 9-note scales, you can get like the scales that don't complete themselves in one octave.
How?
Right? Like I could play A harmonic minor to C harmonic minor, right? Like that kind of thing, into like Hungarian minor, into the augmented scale, into harmonic major. Right, so that's what I do. I sit around and try to weave in and out of all those.
So you're playing whole, or like stepwise motion descending, and then at a certain point you just kind of change the.
For the scale that don't complete itself, I played one octave of the A scale, and then I play one octave of C harmonic minor, right? So.
Yeah. Okay. That certainly is an interesting way. So you basically would have to have that. The information you would have to have memorized are the scale, so you'd know what to switch to what, right? Like, or the specific, I guess, keys of the scale that offset will draw from a pool of notes. So it would be A harmonic minor, you said, to C harmonic minor, to maybe major down. Hungarian minor.
Yeah.
And C harmonic major. To A harmonic minor. To C harmonic minor. All right.
Yeah.
And you would, now here's the thing. When you practice this kind of stuff, is there, like, how strong is the ear training element in this? Like, I would say that, like, when you're playing simple swing tunes, there's a sort of humming logic that takes over when you're playing like a standard. You kind of like you're following a line in your head. I don't have the beginning of a clue of knowing what this sounds like in the context of music.
Yeah, I mean, you have to experiment with it, you know. So,
but like for you, like when you hear Alan, I know it's moving fast, but like let's say it's a solo you didn't transcribe and you're listening to it. Do you have a pretty good ear for what specific scale structure is being employed against that specific chord voicing as it's happening at this point?
I can tell certain movements that he's playing, and I can tell, I can hear scales, right? I can hear mode 3 like pretty easily if he's playing it or somebody's playing it. I mean, the more time you spend with these scales, the more they get into your, ear or your subconscious or whatever, what that sound is. Just like when you hear Lydian, Lydian when you hear
It's so much easier to believe he's lying. You know what I mean? It's just like my brain is telling me not to believe you, that it's possible because I don't hear it so much, but I do believe you.
I'll tell you, like, the whole thing is, man, is I hear Alan completely different than I used to hear him. Like understanding the scales and experimenting with them and understanding the sounds and the approach that, I believe he uses, it makes you hear him in a completely different way. You hear the compositions in a completely different way. You hear the harmonies in a completely different way. They all make much more sense, right?
I get it. It's like Darwinism. You're like that giraffe that like leaned to the tree until your neck grew longer. You know what I mean?
See the fruit?
Yeah, because it's right there. It's just like, it's just like you have to. Yeah, it's sort of like, you evolve your hearing to that thing, and now all of a sudden you're in this different kind of place. Because for me, like it's not even that it all sounds the same to me. It's just that I don't have. It's all in the same place, which is far away. Like it doesn't seem very accessible. So just by virtue of it being in that camp of sounds of like the 9-note scales, I understand. Like once you're there, you all of a sudden like, wow, these are very different from each other. I mean, I understand conceptually. We'll see if we get there.
Yeah, I mean, they're different, man. They're complete worlds,
Okay.
And, each scale, each sound, each mode. So like, so I sent you my Messiaen Etude book. I don't know if you got that or checked it out, but if you listen to the audio files, each one of those etudes is just that one mode, right? So all the comping, all the lines come from, it's one for each mode, right?
So you're talking about you're going into each mode of the Messiaen scale?
I wrote an etude, or like a little mini composition that utilizes just, C mode 3, whole tone, C mode 4, C mode 5, C mode 6, C mode 7. I did one I think I did 2 for mode 3 in there. And then I do one where I mixed mode 3 and mode 4 together and created a line that weaves in and out of the two scales, right? But if you listen to those etudes, each one of those, to me, sound completely different,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so the thing that's a real brain fuck for me is not thinking modally with these scales. So like you're sort of like, let's say if you take mode 3, just because it's a little bit harder to understand visually than adding stuff to a major scale, you're always in a way thinking about the starting point of it conceptually being like the whole step, half step, right?
I mean, I just see things in the scale, right?
So there's no starting point, really.
Not really. I mean, it's just, to me, it's just the group of notes, right?
Yeah.
I just see these
floating in space.
right, floating in space.
Yeah.
And then like, what I'll do is I'll try to find the basic chords, like, major 7 chords and major triads, minor triads, find all that stuff. And then I'll try to find like different, like the voicings, right?
Yeah. And I think that this is exactly what people are going to have the most confusion about. But you said it in the very beginning, like you have located each one of these modes separately in your version of a phone book from hell, just the permutations of the chromatic, and you've folded the 3 of them into something you called mode 3, and it's just those.
Oh wait, say that again.
I'm saying that you have like found the formulas for that mode 3 starting from every note of it, like all the actual modes inside mode 3.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So and to you, they're all folded into one. And the parent scale, the way you write it down is arbitrary, right? You chose to write it down starting on mode 3.
Is the, this shape. So it's like 3 minor triads.
Yeah.
But I break it up, like this scale, like is very, very deep. But one of the things I want to say about finding voicings in these scales is you end up with very specific voicings a lot of times, right? Like you'll end up with, like in this scale, for example, C major 7, C major 7 sharp 11, C major 7 sharp 5, right? But you won't end up with a C major 6.
No sixes, no diminished
No
chords.
A, right?
Yeah.
So you end up with very specific voicings, you know. And then the other thing that I do with these scales is I try to find structures and then walk the structures, which I did in the book. There's for each mode, I took a bunch of different structures and I walked them through each scale, each of the 7 modes.
Right.
You know, some of them aren't the greatest sounding voicing.
So
Like
structures, you mean you take a specific chord thing and you just move it stepwise through the mode,
scale.
each voice.
Right, each voice. And then, you know, and you start to find, you know, like one thing for this like jazz major add flat 3 flat 6 scale that you would never think to do, or that I would never think to do, is to play like an E flat major with E in the bass.
Yeah, I would not think to do that.
So you end up thinking of things that you wouldn't think about, you would never come up with if you weren't thinking about this particular group of notes.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of things like that. I mean, I can't even probably remember, you know, all the things I've found where I've been like, yeah, I would never have thought of to do this.
How do you catalog the things you find? Like, how, when in your practice, like, what is, like, okay, so you said you sat there and you found kind of from your transcription work, you knew fingerings. The beginning was seeing those fingerings inside the scale. How quickly did that branch off to like harmony and away from line playing? Immediately? Was this happening in parallel?
Yeah, because I always want to be aware of the harmony. You know what I mean? I mean, that's to me that's the coolest thing. You know, is the sounds that you can create, right? So yeah, right away I was trying to find, you know, like the triads. That's where you start. I mean, that's the beginning, right? Triads are the simplest thing. So
all the possible triads from each root would be like
right from each root. You try to find all the triads, then you try to find the 7th chords, stuff like that. And then I just looked for like specific voicings. You know, I might be like, oh hey, you know, I get this sharp 11 voicing with a, you know, sharp 9 in it, and try to
see out where it exists in the scale.
How I can voice it, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
So
is there any benefit of like working with this kind of stuff as you practice against some sort of drone or root note from the scale? Is that something?
Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah. Just to kind of have it get used to the sound. So what would be like a typical thing you'd throw on to work a scale?
Well, sometimes I'll come up with little chord progressions like out of that scale or whatever, where I'll just take like a specific chord, like the A flat major, like the C major 7 over A flat or whatever.
C major 7 over A flat.
Earlier, right?
Yeah.
Like just I would have that just droning, and then I'll just play around. And I'll just.
Okay. So it'll be like a. That's gonna be our theme song. I love that. Okay. That's gonna be every montage we do. But I'll be.
Like it. Yeah, I'll do that, and then I'll do like chord progressions, you know,
in a loop, and just work.
Just in a loop.
We can do this. Huh? Do you feel inspired, Nick?
Oh yeah.
Really? Okay. All right. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna start taking exactly that. So our homework, I'm recapping, I'm giving us assignments, and we're gonna make separate content as we fumble our way through this stuff like fools. So we need to see the half step minor third shape, the whole step minor, or the minor third half step shape. Then we need to figure out how to do 3 notes per string through this material. We need those symmetric things with the half step, whole step, half step. We need 2 octave scales kind of switching between all the stuff that's there. And we need triads and 4-part harmony starting from every root. And we need to do this against some and very ethereal sounding harmonies coming out of that.
Yep. Be a good start.
My God, man, this is brutal.
Yeah.
This is brutal. Most people will not do this.
Fun, man. To me, that's fun. You know, this is a Saturday.
I know, but but you know, I mean, have you always been like that with practice? How does that work with having like a woman that you're married to?
Yeah, I mean, she's pretty understanding, so I'm lucky.
That's good. Like, do you ever like go to her and the kids be like, check this out, or just?
Oh no, they don't care. Anything.
Yeah, I have that too, and I have like, you know, I've like my wife won't care about like Lydian.
Yeah.
So this is like a whole other level.
But, you know, I mean, yeah, when I was transcribing all this stuff, you know, slowing it down and everything, you know, they had to hear all that, like all these weird sounds coming out of this room. You know, so, pretty understanding.
Yeah, that's amazing. Shit. Well, this is a really horrible feeling, deeply, like not knowing so much. You know, I'm just being honest. Like, I don't know what it's like. I feel like there's something like there's a hole in the middle of my chest when I try to look down and like find these fingerings. So we also are gonna have to work out some technical shit. We
gotta make you whole.
Yeah, we're losers. We've wasted our lives. I'm almost 40, man. I can't restart right now.
Yeah, what's this we?
Oh man.
Oh yeah, you're young, right? Nick's gonna be a star. Anyway, we're gonna make Nick into fucking Holdsworth by next week, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You know that he has a Holdsworth guitar, and we were both too embarrassed to play it.
I have 3 of them, and I'm using my Strat on here.
Yeah, it's like the internet just makes you so scared of these people.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So again, I want to say thank you to you, and I want to say a sincere go fuck yourself to everybody who's like gonna be like, you're gonna sound just like Holdsworth, like I mean it. It's coming from someplace real. You know, just like, please write it so we can get into it, is what I'm asking. And this is awesome. We're gonna be Holdsworth in no time. Are you ready to Holdsworth? Yeah. All right. We're happy to be in the mystery. Thank you so much for doing this, and we'll see you next week.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it.